I'm out here on Moab, Utah's famous Hell's Revenge Trail with two vehicles, the Toyota LandCruiser and the Toyota 4Runner. These vehicles do have a lot in common, but there's quite a bit that separates them too. We're going to be out here testing each one to see how they differ and potentially see which one is the right one for you.
Let's start with what we all see first, the exterior.
Right off the bat, the 4Runner looks more aggressive than the LandCruiser. All you have to do is take a look at this front end, the grille, which almost looks like it's angry. There are so many more creases and angles here. The really sort of slit and narrow headlights that kind of almost make it look like a transformer. You can see this is the Trail Hunter trim, and it gets these nice wide fender flares that make it look pretty beefy. Personally, I'm a huge fan of these bronze wheels. I think they're fantastic. But this thing, when you are looking at it, it just looks like it's aggressive and it's ready for adventure. The one thing to note about the profile is the roofline here. Remember, when you're looking at the 4Runner, how much lower this looks when it comes to comparing it to the LandCruiser. The LandCruiser stands over 5 inches higher than the 4Runner does, and you can really see how that changes the stance of this vehicle. Beyond that, when we come to the body and the sheet metal, especially up front, there are not as many angles, not as many creases, not as much aggressive looking stuff. This to me is much more of a traditional off-roader that's more in the vintage style. It's boxy, I think it's elegant, I think it's beautiful. So that also tells me a little bit more about what this one specializes in next to the 4Runner.
When it comes to the interior, we've got the same kind of thing going on.
Even the interiors of both of these effectively channel and telegraph exactly what it is that these are purpose-built for. So the interior of the 4Runner, even on the upper trims, looks really nice, but it is still very appropriate for the stocky bulldog that is this vehicle. So you've got grab handles, you have the sort of textured grip, you have kind of something that looks like almost cement here. It is very earthy and kind of very aggressive, even on this switchgear, which, yes, guys, sadly, this is all plastic. You have these almost like fake little screws on here, just giving it more of a utilitarian feel. And the interior of the LandCruiser, while simple, is by no means basic. You have beautiful leather in here. The stitching is gorgeous. All of this texture, perforated seats. The switchgear is nice, more simple, but not inexpensive looking. So it's a very different vibe in here. Again, a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more classic, just like the LandCruiser. One thing worth mentioning about the interior is when it comes to putting the second row down. On both the 4Runner and the LandCruiser, this does not lay flat. So if you have plans to go out overlanding and sleeping in the back of this, you're going to have to find an aftermarket solution. And that, well, you got to put your hybrid business somewhere.
Okay, so it's easy to see the physical appearance differences, but what about when it comes to capability? Well, they both have the same powertrain. Almost. Base model 4Runners get the standard engine, which is a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder.
So the 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder does come with a hybrid if you are getting the iForce Max, which you do in the Trail Hunter and in the TRD Pro. You cannot get it as a non-hybrid. That makes 326 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. Guys, that is a lot of torque. And every 4Runner or LandCruiser, no matter which engine you have, gets mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. I'm actually finding it pretty good. There have been very few times when I've had to put it into manual shift mode just to get a little bit of extra power when I'm trying to get up something steep, but otherwise I don't have anything to complain about at this current time. But check with me later, because maybe I will.
In the capability arena, if you are getting either LandCruiser or one of the off-road specific 4Runners, both are going to get disconnecting sway bars, some additional drive modes like mud, snow, and sand. You're going to get crawl control, which is an off-road cruise control, and rear locking differentials. On the LandCruiser, that functionality does come standard, but on the base model trim, the 1958, you do not get the stabilizer bar disconnect. Not so on that 4Runner, you do have to get the TRD off-road to get a similarly equipped 4Runner. The 4Runner has slightly better geometry with an approach angle at 32 degrees and a departure angle as steep as 24 degrees. The LandCruiser has a 31 degree approach angle and 22 degrees of departure. The ground clearance edge clearly goes slightly to the 4Runner here, but again, this tracks. If you're into more aggressive off-roading, chances are you're going to be into the more aggressive styling of the 4Runner.
Picking your lines in the LandCruiser is going to be a little bit more important. Again, you are lacking the ground clearance that you do get in the 4Runner. The other thing that I'm going to mention here that is usually fairly critical in this kind of environment is tires. I am on Yokohama Geolanders right now. They don't have a ton of sidewall. They don't have a ton of sort of knobby, grippy stuff that you get on other tires. If I were buying this myself and it was important to me to be able to do some more significant off-roading, I would change the tires. So again, with the LandCruiser, you're looking at something that perhaps is a little bit more oriented toward the road than off-road. On terrain like this, I am generally going to be left foot braking, and I'm honestly feeling such smoothness between the braking and the throttle response. It's really terrific when you are rock crawling to have things be nice and smooth, so you're not doing kind of jerky things when you're already going up and down difficult obstacles. So I really do appreciate that about the iForce Max engine, as well as the way that the throttle is mapped and set up.
Let's talk about some of the interior features like the multi-terrain monitor that can help you out while you're on your adventures.
So the camera on here, yes, it's a nice feature to have, but right now everything literally in front of this truck is in shadow, and so it is very hard for me to see even with the camera. I wouldn't rely on it 100%. If you're going over something that is a little bit mysterious, have a spotter, get out, and see what you're driving.
No, mechanically the LandCruiser doesn't flinch when it's out here, but it does have some shortcomings that will dictate what you do out in the wild. The LandCruiser was always more traditionally an overlanding vehicle for longer cross-country trips, and that still stands. With an efficient and worthy powertrain, this iteration operates no differently. Now let's get that 4Runner out here and see what's what.
The most basic setup you can get that makes you still tremendously capable in the 4Runner is the TRD off-road, which is what I'm driving right now. The base engine is just that 2.4 liter without the hybrid. So you do have less torque. You have 371 pound-feet of torque, but it comes in full at 1700 RPM. So that's still a really good number up obstacles like this one that we just did. It really still has no problem, even when it has a little bit less power. Even without the multi-terrain monitor, I don't necessarily have a problem. I like understanding and knowing the terrain, seeing what it is that I'm going over. And again, from what I said earlier, if you have a shadow under the front of your truck, you're not going to really be able to see anyway. So always safer and better to know exactly what it is that you're driving over. I don't miss it here. And if that's going to save you some money, all the better. So this one has the Bilstein shocks. Not as sophisticated a suspension setup, but it's still eating things up pretty nicely. I don't know, how's it in the back seat?
Dandy.
We have a dandy, everybody. So again, you have decent power to get you out of sandy stuff. And even with these, the Falcon Wild Peak tires, they're not like the best tires out there. You're still gonna get some pretty decent grip. So again, entry level, if we can call $52,000-ish entry level at this point, you're still getting a lot of vehicle. Look, it's still expensive, but as far as bang for your buck, the TRD off-road with the base engine is gonna be the best bang for your buck, 100%.
Obviously, when it comes to both the Trail Hunter and the TRD Pro, guys, you're going next level with everything.
One place where we do see some differentiation is in ground clearance. So the Trail Hunter is going to get the most with 10.1 inches of ground clearance. The TRD Pro, you're looking at 9.1 inches. All of the other TRD or SR5, the non-TRD Pro and Trail Hunter trucks are going to get anywhere between 8.1 and 8.8 inches depending on which one you buy. The same thing when you're talking about the shocks that are underneath the suspension, which all of the componentry, again, is exactly the same on these vehicles. So on the TRD Sport, you're going to get Bilstein shocks. On the Trail Hunter, this is the one that I'm driving right now, the Trail Hunter gets Old Man Emu shocks. Those are really set up more for overlanding. These are going to be better for rock crawling. And the 2.5-inch adjustable Fox shocks that are on the TRD Pro, those ones are going to be more for speed. And of course, you know, because we've already jumped it, stuff like jumps. The one thing I will advocate for, if you are at all serious about off-roading, make sure whatever truck you get has the stabilizer disconnect. It's going to make your articulation much better, much easier to get over stuff, and it's going to make your ride much more comfortable. You're not going to have that kind of bobblehead thing going on every time you go over something. It makes a huge difference. All that being said, if I had to give one of these the edge for capability when it comes to off-roading, guys, I'm gonna give it to the 4Runner, and I'm definitely in the 9 trim levels that you can get in the 4Runner. I'm gonna give it to the Trail Hunter just because of that extra inch of ground clearance.
Pricing on the Toyota 4Runner SR5 starts at $42,220. For the TRD Off-Road with the standard engine, you're looking at $50,615. Upgrade to that iForce Max engine, and you're going to be paying $53,440. For the Off-Road Premium and TRD Pro and Trail Hunters, you are going to be paying a lot more money. When it comes to the LandCruiser, the base model 1958 is going to cost you $58,150. The LandCruiser, Toyota, that name, $62,920. So if you're looking for something comparable to the base model 1958 LandCruiser, you guys, my pick for you is going to be the TRD Off-Road with the upgraded engine. It's a little less than $5,000 of difference, but both are very similarly equipped.
Look, none of us is millionaires. Maybe some of you are, that's great. But if you click on the link above, Kelley Blue Book can help you find a fair purchase price on either one of these vehicles. KBB.com. Go check it out.
The LandCruiser comes across as the more sophisticated one here with slightly less aggressive capability. Though I think you've seen in this video, it's still formidable. But at its entry point is only slightly more money than the 4Runner. And maybe that's worth it to you if you're looking for something a bit more on the refined side.
I know which one I would pick. Maybe that's obvious. I don't know, maybe not. Ultimately, it's going to depend on each individual and what you're looking for in both a daily driver and an off-roader. In a perfect world, I would make both of these less expensive, but let's face it, we don't live in a perfect world. But what I can say is this, either with the 4Runner or with the LandCruiser, if you're in the market for either one of these, color me jealous. I don't think you're gonna make a bad decision either way. And then there's this. This is the reason why we do all this to begin with.